Pledge allegiance. All right, good evening. We have a couple presentations followed by the conclusion of the 2022-2023 budget adoption process, at least with respect to the Board of Education. After today, it will be in the voters' hands. But before we get to that, I just want to have a moment of silence. I was informed that we had a passing of our South Huntington family member today, Marie Joan Anderson, who was a longtime physical education teacher with the district at elementary schools in the district and also in Walt Whitman High School. She lived a wonderful life. She passed recently on April 1st, 2022 at the age of 96. So she was a Huntington Station resident. She lived a short distance away from Ebbets Field originally. And she cheered for the Dodgers, and when she would get admission for Ladies' Day at only 10 cents. So the price of the ticket has gone up a lot since then. And she attended NYU College, and she had a very long and distinguished career in South Huntington, and we mourn her passing, and just to give a moment of silence in her honor. Thank you. Okay, we start with a cafe presentation, and we're going to turn it over to Sheila Busey, and I think she has ice cream for everyone.
Tonight. Good evening, everybody. I would like to thank Mr. Ciapetta, Mrs. Carey, the board trustees, as well as the superintendent and cabinet members for allowing me the opportunity to share with you and the audience some improvements that we have made earlier this school year in 3 of our cafeterias. In South Huntington, our lunchrooms are actually used for more than just dining. They are used for parent and staff meetings, student performances, and other enrichment programs. They are truly all-purpose and serve as the hub of our school buildings. This is why we decided it was important to update these facilities to meet the current needs of our students and staff members. The immediate response from our students has been one of amazement and gratitude. They cannot believe that we would do something like this for them. But this is just one example about how South Huntington continues to show up for its students. I am so excited for you to get a first look at our refreshed cafes. We think you'll like them as much as we do.
Excellent. Moving on to our second presentation, we have a South Huntington technology update, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Murphy, who will introduce our, what's that? Oh, yeah. Who will introduce our Supervisor of Educational Technology, Brianna Fulton. And,
Yes,
put the
thank
lights
you.
on?
I think it'll be fine.
Oh.
Brianna, I think we're good, right? Oh, we're good. Gives me great pleasure. Obviously, Rihanna has come to us as Director of Technology. She's put a lot of time and effort in not only addressing some of the instructional capabilities of our district, but also what we've been able to do in terms of infrastructure and making sure that we can maintain the things we have now and excel upon the things we are currently looking at. So without further ado, I'd like to ask Rihanna to talk about all the wonderful things the technology department has done K through 12 within the South Huntington School District.
We've done a lot. Just going to start there. Thank you, everybody. I'm Rihanna Fulton. Thank you for letting me to share a little bit about what's been happening. I just wanted to bring up one thing. This is April, and exactly 1 year ago this month, I was accepted at the board meeting in April for my position, so thank you so much. I'm hitting my 1 year anniversary. I actually wore the shirt that I wore for my ID card to be a little nostalgic and feel special, because it reminds me every day of how lucky I am. So,
Brianna, if you could
Thank
just introduce yourself a little bit since this is
Sure.
your first presentation.
So I'm Rihanna Fulton. I'm the Supervisor of Technology. I've been here almost exactly a year. It'll be July 1st. It'll be my first year. My background, I have an IT background from the military, from my undergraduate in college. I went on to pursue education, and I've been working in IT in the school districts for the past 3 years. This is now my 4th year. So I'm very excited to share with you some of the changes we've made and some of the things that we've done, because I think that from where I've started to where we're actually going, we're making such significant progress. I think you might be impressed. I hope so. Oops, sorry. Thomas. Hold on. I think I'm going to get it. I got it. If I can't figure out how to work one of these, we're in trouble.
I find it funny we're having technical difficulties with the technical director.
All right, so just to start with, one of the first things I noticed coming into the district is that really there was such a need to be able to look at all of our assets in the district. What type of computers do we have? What type of Chromebooks do we have? Do we have iPads? What do our servers look like? And really just to come and start to inventory all of our stuff. So I started using a product called TipWeb, which is now Asset Manager. It is through Frontline. And some of the things we were able to do while going through the process is digging through the basement of Memorial, going through some of the buildings, and finding some of our old surplus. We have some old IT equipment, maybe 10 or 20 years old, that we've been going through. So if you see that on the Board of Ed agenda, just know that, you know, some of this stuff is extremely old, and if it has any purpose, we're trying to repurpose it. But for what we're trying to do right now, it's really unsafe to use a lot of that stuff within our current infrastructure. So this year, we've been able to replace many of our interactive boards, trying to come up with a replenishment cycle. One of the best things about having an asset manager tool is that when we get new Chromebooks, I upload them and I'm able to check them out to students, but I'm also able to keep track of when they auto expire or when they're coming to the end of life. So that way, when we budget, we can look down the road, not just this year and next year, but maybe the next 5 to 10 years. And it really is helpful to keep that bottom line down as much as we can. This year, we were able to refresh all the desktops in the classroom. So that was over, I believe, over 330. So that made a lot of changes, and all the Chromebooks, we've done so far grades 11 and 10, and now we're moving down to 9. So in May, we'll be refreshing the ones for 9th grade. They expire in June, so we're going to make sure that when those students leave school in June, they actually have a device that they can use now for the next few years going forward. So we don't want to be working against the clock. And going through a lot of these different types of assets and looking at all of our stuff, we're able to find things like the picture on the bottom. We were able to take some of our old computers that we pulled out of classrooms, change the hard drives, repurpose them, and now the cybersecurity lab has physical desktops, the first time they haven't had them in 5 years. So we wanted to make sure that those students who really are interested in working in technology have the tools they need to be successful. And just to give you an idea, the graph on the left is just one picture of what we see from the asset manager. I've been spending time the past year, I've been spending the time going through old purchase orders, contacting vendors, getting serial numbers and asset tags and uploading them, so that way we can start to keep track of all of our resources and find maybe some of the things that might have gone a a little bit missing. So that kind of ties into the next thing that we've been doing for South Huntington, which is the help desk software. If you look at this chart, you can see the amount of trouble tickets that we have at all the schools all over South Huntington, all the buildings. But the best part about this is that any staff member and any student in the district is able to put in their own ticket. Everybody has access to this in ClassLink. They log in, they sign in with their Google, and they're able to submit their tickets. When something gets done with their ticket, a comment is made, or it's closed, or there's progress actioned, it sends them a notification. Then we're able to go back and look at our tickets and see exactly what was done. So there's no more things, you know, when we're saying, oh, I don't know what happened. We know exactly what happened to that ticket, and we're taking action. As a matter of fact, we're almost, when I checked today, we're very close to 7,000 tickets since July 1st when we launched this. So we have a lot of things going on in the IT department. A lot of tickets come in, whether it's Chromebook repairs, desktops, or accounts. But a lot of things. This is so important because it helps me as the supervisor of that department to kind of decide what direction we're going in. Do we see a lot of breakage with certain things? Maybe it's not a good product. Do we see something that's happening often after a break? Well, then maybe we have to reevaluate our IT processes. So these are good things that we have in place to be able to kind of make what we do better and ensure that the students have the best tools they need in order to be educated. It also links with our asset system. So when I put somebody's Chromebook in the asset system, I now check it directly out to the student. When the student goes into the help desk software, it comes up and says, hi, Thomas, are you having a problem with this device? And you can click on it and say yes, and then submit your ticket. And if he goes in for repair, we're also able to track it that way too. So we have that history of what's been going on with those devices over time. Helps us also find patterns with different types of devices. And I'd already mentioned the tickets, but like I said, that's a very large number. My previous district, around maybe 3,000 a year. So we're more than double. And the year's not over, so we do have a lot more going on in IT, but hopefully next year we can kind of lower that down with some of the things we'll put in place over the summer. This is the fun stuff that I love, the infrastructure updates. So we've done so much, and there's still so much to do. So when I started, I said I needed target schools. I wanted to pick one site that was going to be my test site for everything. So I went to Mr. Toto, and I said, would you mind if I used your school as my test site? I figured it had a little over 400 students. It really wouldn't be something where, you know, it was the grade where the kids just got their Chromebooks. It was very small. And he said, absolutely. He let me go in there. We replaced all the fiber internally between the IT closets, which is good because you need that. It was over 20 years old. We were able to replace some racks. And if you see up on the top right, that was your main rack. When I got there, the door was open. There was a copy machine plugged directly into it. There were some frayed wires. And after I almost fell on the floor, I picked myself up, and then we kind of went to action and said, okay, now we're going to go and we're going to replace the cabinets. I bought my own vacuum cleaner from home. The guys have learned how to now do some kind of they have to understand the way I am. I like to have things clean. I feel that dust inside equipment causes problems. So they have gotten on board, and they were good enough to go in there, clean everything up. And now the picture on the bottom right, that's Brian Grennan. He's a class of 2012 from Walt Whitman High School. And he's demonstrating the cleanliness of our new rack. So I thought that was a nice touch. But we're not even done there because now the next phase is going to be color coding all the wires in there. So when somebody comes into our space, they're able to open it up and know exactly which thing it is. Is it an access point? Is that a computer? Is that a phone? And that's really the way that we want to be able to move forward. So now that Silas has been our model school, we're moving to Maplewood. So over the April break, next week, we're going to be doing the same thing over at Maplewood, expanding the access points into the hallways to make sure we have full coverage, so that way when a student walks out the door of their classroom, they don't drop out. And we want to make sure that we're continuous throughout. We also replaced and added UPSs. So in all the buildings, there was no power supply in any of the IT equipment. So when there was a power spike, everything would drop. And if it came back up, that was great, but sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes we lose equipment that way. So we went and installed UPSs, which was great. And now, as a result, we have little power spikes here. It doesn't knock our servers offline, and we're doing well. So we're happy with that.
What's UPS?
Universal Power Supplies.
Oh.
Yeah, they go inside the rack. It's just a big battery. So we've actually purchased ones, too. We're setting them up so that way when I'm home, I'll get notified whether there's a power spike in district on a Sunday. So we can kind of be proactive. But We put those in JKAO, Silas Wood, we're putting them in Maplewood, and we already put it in transportation. And transportation was a great progress this year because we not only were able to put Wi-Fi into the bays, so that way whoever's working inside on the buses is able to access things wirelessly. We gave them iPads to work on as a test. They're bringing laptops in now to be able to test, right? I see our friend Dr. Wright over there, very happy about that, but they're going to be able to test the buses right in the truck, in the bay, and it's really something that we had to do because that's the direction that IT is going. And the last thing was refreshing the Ethernet connections. Some of them had been literally crumbled, so we're having the techs learn how to go around and how to re-terminate everything. So that way we're not saying we're going to do all new installations. That's a waste of money. We're just going to re-terminate, clean them up, because guess what? They still work. So it's all good.
Is all of our tech work, is it all done in-house?
Yeah, so most of the stuff that we're doing in-house. And this is really a great training opportunity to take all the technicians we have. I'm a firm believer in being self-sufficient. That's the military in me. I learned that from being, deployed. And I feel like this is one of the things that we're able to kind of bring here and do it. And I think it's just what we should continue to do in the future. So we have done a lot, too, in instructional technology. Just some of the things I wanted to highlight. We've added those additional tech coaches at the schools. We have somebody who is for the primary. We have one teacher there. We have two for our intermediates, 3 through 5. And we also have one who is in the 6 through 8 position. And then, of course, we have our high school. And really, the progress we've made has been kind of coming together and sitting down and having those conversations about what software do we have, what is the instructional purpose, and is it needed? Should we be spending our money on it? And really, through these conversations, they've been able to kind of go through and find things that are maybe duplicate or maybe that we could use in a different way. And I think that that's the right direction that we should be going. But they've kind of bought into my influence. I try to, not to be all creepy, but I try to share with them that one of the best things that we can do is kind of look at every piece of technology and ensure that it's being used for an instructional purpose. It's not just used to be used. And the same thing with software. And they've been very good at kind of coming on board and doing that dirty work for me to kind of look and see, like, where can we use it? And I think that's important. We've implemented, thank you to Dr. Murphy, a new process in the Curriculum Council. So if somebody wants to purchase something, they have to go to the Curriculum Council and show how are they going to use it? How is it being used instructionally? So on the top right, we have 2 of our tech coaches that just recently did a presentation on WeVideo. And I do believe that food service might have been made in WeVideo. Was that a WeVideo? No? I know we talked about that, the food service video. No? Okay. It looks like WeVideo. It was very good, by the way. So that's something that really has come out of Curriculum Council. That's great. I love being there and being a part of that and being able to discuss with people how we're using our technology and how we can use it to educate our students. We've also added our Codesters. Codesters was new this year for grades 5. It's already in grade 6 and being used a little bit in our in Stimson. But moving coding down to the 5th grade has been huge. I think that the trend we're going to see and try to continue with is bringing it down more to the younger grades because we want students to be able to have that type of analytical thinking as they get older. So Codesters was a great program this year. A huge one was ClassLink, our single sign-on. This is giving everybody the keys to the kingdom. As soon as a student logs in, they're able to access all their different apps and programs, and they only have to sign in with one thing. It's also great because it has multi-factor authentication, which we have to have by cybersecurity, so we're able to use that as another feature. And we can simply put links in there for anybody that need it, so it makes it so streamlined to be able to log into a Chromebook and get access to all of your stuff. We also have done a lot of work with our data privacy agreements. I think people are sick of hearing me talk about it, and I'm sure the board's sick of hearing us present them at these board meetings because they have to approve them. But the data privacy agreements are so important because we have to be able to look to make sure that we're not disclosing any student information and giving anybody unauthorized access. So it's important that we continually go through these privacies, contact our vendors and people that are using free software, and make sure we get an idea of what is what. And we're using our help desk software to keep track of all that, which is very nice. And the happy part is that the technology plan has been submitted. So every 3 years, districts have to submit a plan to the state where they come up with a process, listen to the community, listen to the teachers and the students and everybody, all stakeholders. And our 2 pictures on the bottom left and right are the committee getting together. Multiple times we got together, talked about different things that we're going to be doing, the plan that we're coming up with the district. We're trying to go forward and use more of a technology framework. We're trying to create student learning profiles and portfolios. So that's another piece we're trying to give students that access to be able to have a record of themselves and their learning from the time that they're young until the time they get to high school, so they can see all the growth they've made over the years. So we're very happy. Our lovely picture in the middle is from our makerspace at Silas Wood. That was one day when finally Sarah, Jackie, and I just said, you know what, we have to get this going. So we spent the entire day there moving, putting things together, setting everything up, and we took a nice picture. So that's the green screen they're using now for all the announcements for 6th grade. And I can't thank everybody enough for all the collaborative efforts, but it wouldn't be IT if we all didn't get together and do some work. So I appreciate everything we've done with data this year. My partner in crime over there, Dr. Rice. Hi, Dr. Rice. She has been really instrumental in helping to get some of the stuff in the parent portal updated, helping to get some of the customized letters that we're putting out there, so that way parents have access to them. Also the campus workflow, we're able to go through and see when students are kind of accessing certain things in the building to kind of keep track of that. And Tableau, which is going to be launched, parents will be very excited. Soon you'll be able to see that in the portal, kind of a snapshot of all your students' learning. So you can see how they're doing on their benchmark assessments, how they're doing on their Regents assessments, and kind of get an idea of where they're going academically. And additionally, with food services, we're working right now trying to update all the food service kiosks. So up there on the left, instead of having to go to BOCES and purchase that all-in-one model, we're now working with touchscreen monitors and also CPUs from within the district. That way, when one breaks, we go to our shelf, we put another one together, and we put it out on the floor. We don't have to worry about going to other people, asking them for help. I know Dr. Wright's going to hate that picture, but that's the Huddle camera. And we're very excited to have the Huddle camera over at Walt Whitman High School. It's so easy to set up and to get access to games. I was just saying in my home district today, I sent a text and said, how's the game going? Haha, if we had a Huddle camera, I would probably know. We don't have one, but South Huntington does, so that's amazing. But putting that up with facilities also has been a tremendous help, working with us in that. I'm also working with athletics, trying to get our final forms set up. So next school year, if any student wants to play sports, we're going to upload all that information. So in the past, what used to happen, all parents had to go in there and kind of create a profile. We're going to upload all the data for you, and then that way, if your child wants to play sports, you go in there and just put the essential few pieces of information. We want to make it so that we give students and parents more access to those extracurricular activities. And of course, facilities. Thank you to Dennis Martin back there. We've been working on the cameras together. We got another one online today. Of course, working on our door access and all of our interactive boards we've been doing. His guys have been doing them for us. So it's been really amazing, and we thank him a lot. And the last thing I'm going to just briefly mention, because this can be like a 5-hour conversation, is the NIST cybersecurity framework. So right now, it's a big buzzword, cybersecurity, hacking, you hear all these different things, phishing. We're actively working on this NIST cybersecurity framework. The area that we have to really start, and anybody in any organization needs to start, is on the left in the identify phase. So kind of some of the things I mentioned about the asset management, we've brought that in. We're currently looking through all of our stuff, finding out what type of devices do we have, what's the operating system, and kind of making our decisions based on that. We had to look at our business environment and decide what are the critical systems that we need to have online so that we can function if anything ever happens. So we've kind of come up with those different things. But we're constantly working through this. We had to kind of go through and look at recently our risk management. Everybody knows with COVID, there was a lot of remote access given in a lot of places. So now we're having to kind of bring all that back and say, okay, what risk are we willing to accept to give people access to our external systems, and just kind of working down. But this phase will probably take at least a year to go through, and then we're continually working on to our next phase. But in addition to all this in our cybersecurity, one of the first things I did a few months in was we updated our disaster recovery, because if we didn't have a way to know how to recover from something that happens that's bad, we might be in trouble. So we kind of skipped a little bit on that once we figured out our systems, but we're just in the process of doing so much in IT. I could stand here for five years and tell you, but that would bore everybody. So does anybody have any questions for me?
Board, any questions? Dr. Villiers?
Yeah, I would just like to say, Dr. Fulton or Miss Fulton, or is it soon to be Dr. Fulton?
Next
I'm
month.
confused.
Next
Okay.
month.
Thank you, okay. As Ms. Fulton mentioned earlier, she signed on with us middle of April of last year. She did come from another school district, and during her off hours, she did a tremendous amount of homework, getting ready and coming in here July 1st to hit the ground running. This is someone who's only really been here since July, actually physically here, and the amount of work that she's done has been absolutely tremendous. Can't be more impressed, so I thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
And Ms. Fulton only touched on it briefly, but she also is a decorated member of our armed services. And usually when we interview for positions like this, we see at least 2 or 3 candidates that go to the board. And on this particular candidate, Dr. D'Elia said, I can't even bring you a second candidate because there's nobody who's going to even approach Ms. Fulton. And we still did an interview of her, and she blew the board away, so. Actually, one of our board members was looking at the resume and said, oh my God, my life is not nearly as rich as this one. Thank you. All right, we're moving on to the final step of the, like a light show today. Final step of the 2022-2023 budget process. And if you've been with us for our previous meetings, there's been a lot of the work has been done already. We've been building the budget since our board meetings began in February on the budget, but that work really begins in earnest in the fall. It's a long process, the budget, and the adoption is really somewhat more of a formality because we've been involved step by step. And at the last meeting, we had a consensus of the board as to how to proceed, and the consensus was to put up a 0 tax levy budget, which is the first time we've been able to do that really since the tax ever, and since the tax cap came into effect, and it was through a lot of hard work. So a lot of credit goes to our staff on that, and particularly Dr. D'Elia, and I'll turn it over to him to introduce the budget adoption.
Yes, not to steal any thunder away from Dr. Centimore, who's done a tremendous amount of work and unbelievable work with the budget this year. As Mr. Ciapetta mentioned, we're looking at a 0 tax levy, but a lot of, and we don't know when we ever had a 0, but if I try to recall when people do go to a 0, it's usually you're trying to cut things to get there. We're not cutting, we're adding with the 0 tax levy. So I can't say how, I know it hasn't been adopted yet, but I can't say how excited I am for what we are able to present to our community with the 0 levy and what we're adding to an already strong program, because we added a decent amount of teachers last year, different supports, and we're not taking anything away. We're adding. And, I don't want, Joe, I know you're looking at me because I'm taking away half your presentation right now, so.
All in favor of the vote?
Dr. Centimore will mention in the slide as you get through that something that did change from last time was the final budget numbers came in from the state. Throughout the process, we work with the governor's budget, and usually the final legislative process is a bump up from what the governor proposes. This was actually a decrease, and so it required some late-minute adjustments, which Dr. Centimore will deal with.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. It's like deja vu all over again. Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
So let me congratulate my colleagues who presented before me, Ms. Busey, who's done incredible work with our nutrition program. I'm thinking about at the May budget hearing doing like a music montage because I was so inspired. The work is absolutely incredible, and what you've done with our nutrition program, the impact you've had on our children is, you should be very proud. We're very proud of you. And thank you, Ms. Fulton, with your presentation. She'll be working with our transportation department to increase efficiencies. She'll be having the flux capacitors installed over the summer, and we'll be in outstanding shape there. Now you know why we call her the Admiral. When she enters my office, I stand up and I'm moving my papers around because I know the white glove is coming out. So good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to be the third part of the trilogy this evening, with bringing you the budget presentation on a big night, budget adoption night. And again, our focus has been to review what we've done, assess the current needs, and obviously the decisions that we make, we want to make sure they are sustainable, because we've done some tremendous things in this district, especially in recent years. A credit to the leadership, a credit to our staff, a credit to the support of our community, and the outstanding kids that we have, because in our school district, we are about 7,000 strong of our students and our staff, and it's all about the kids. It's all about supporting their needs and working with our dedicated educators and support staff and administrators and putting this fine program together here in South Huntington. And just like Dr. D'Elia said, it's also about our community. And when you look at 2 years of a pandemic, and when you look at inflation, when you look at a global crisis on the other side over in Europe, you realize that if the opportunity presents itself with significant state aid to bring to the community, like our Board of Education has decided to do, a 0% increase to the district's tax levy. So we are very, very excited about that. And just as Dr. D'Elia said, we keep raising the bar. We've been talking in prior presentations, my esteemed colleagues on the cabinet have presented about all the great things we've done with our academic recovery, tremendous work being done in terms of equity to close those opportunity achievement gaps, addressing the social emotional needs of our students during this time period, and addressing the needs of all of our students. We are a beautifully diverse school district, a true microcosm of America. That diversity is a source of pride and strength for us. And through all our robust programs, we're able to address those needs. We're adding staff in several needed areas at the high school, at Silas Wood, to further address the needs of all of our learners. So despite the fact that the other day we had a little bit of a disappointing news from the final budget, where unfortunately we did get a little bit of a decrease in what was proposed, but thankfully we were able to quickly huddle together, get the team assembled, all the Avengers assembled in the room, and we were able to quickly absorb that difference without having any negative impact on our programs. And one of the things that was very fortunate in the timing was our Director of Transportation, Ms. Brothers, was working very closely on getting pricing with our buses, and she's been able to secure a pretty good price, so we were able to absorb a big part of that hit in the bus purchase line. And then we looked at other areas where we could try to absorb as well, and I had mentioned a couple of presentations ago how school districts have to guesstimate the second half of the school year, the cost of health insurance, so we have to build in a cushion. We felt like we could reduce that cushion by a little bit and then just kind of tap into the reserves a little bit, because I spoke in the past about how we got to be careful with that. That ties into the sustainability. So just a little bit more of tapping in for this year, and we'll keep a close eye as we move forward, but that's how we were able to absorb that last-second reduction in the aid, although the total aid package is still a very nice package, and we're very appreciative of all of our local representatives who were able to secure that for us. In terms of the revenue that we'll be bringing in, that tax levy is of $121.8 million is the same levy as the current year we're living in, so there is that 0% increase on the levy. There is your final state aid number based on the legislative budget. It's the other revenues we bring in, and those are the total revenues for the district for the 2022-23 school year. That's not the final budget, because there are other expenses. So to offset those other needs, we will be utilizing, as I've spoken in the past, around $2.5 million of the reserves. When the books get closed through our financial services and our orders at the end of the year, if there's money available, we'll look to replenish. This is the year-to-year process. We look to replenish those savings accounts, those reserves. And obviously, as we move forward, the more adequate the state aid is, that enables us not to utilize the reserves, which is a prime objective of us moving forward for the school district.
And we have to be careful in our planning because we do expect next year, it's actually written into law, another bump, but that would be the last year of the bump. You know, we're not going to get this kind of money year after year as much as we would like to.
Absolutely. What Mr. Ciapetta is referring to is that for many years, South Huntington was one of the school districts that was not getting the full allocation of state aid that it was supposed to. There's a formula, and for many years, certain school districts, South Huntington being one of them, was really grossly underfunded. We did a great job, great team effort for years and years putting these budgets together, and now finally they're going to make the district whole, but we just have to realize that, you know, these large bumps in state aid we're due for one more year of that, and then you're going to look at a more normalized process in terms of the ebb and flow of state aid. That's why we got to keep that close eye on the reserves, and hopefully for next year, there won't be a need to utilize it.
And along those lines, anything on page 5 that you mentioned before, we always ask Dr. D'Elia, can we support this? Can we fund it going forward? Because you don't want to add anything to the budget that, might have to be reduced later on.
Absolutely, that's sustainability. We want to make sure that things that we're building, we can continue to grow them. So in terms of transportation, we're still on target to get our 8 buses for the year. Again, this is to help replenish buses that are aging out and also to address athletic needs. Facilities planning, I've spoken in the past. We have a very dedicated, active facilities committee. Several of our board members are on it, chaired by Mr. Ciapetta. Our facilities department, several people are here in the audience today, do a tremendous job of keeping the district well-maintained. Obviously, that's a key part in the experience our students have, our staff, our community when they visit our schools and grounds. So we've dedicated $1 million in the budget for our maintenance. And we have a lot of projects that are planned through our transfer to capital in the budget. And a nice variety of projects across the district, a lot of academic areas being addressed. We're very excited for these projects. There are a lot of numbers up there. Basically, the bottom line, if I draw your attention to the bottom, is our total budget for the next school year will be a little bit over $195 million. So while that is a budget-to-budget increase of 5%, stop the press, that's not the tax levy increase. That's just the budget-to-budget increase, okay? And you see the various, there's a lot of information there. Obviously these presentations go on the website. It's an opportunity for people to kind of look, see the transparency, see where various funding is coming from, especially with the various reserve categories, okay? Now, so the district, I'm going to take a moment here. The district did its part, the Board of Education making the decision that in terms of the total tax levy, $121 million and change, that for next year they're not going to increase the tax levy. The district did its part. Now what happens next is the town of Huntington, the assessor's office, has to do the assessed valuation of the properties, and that doesn't get finalized until the early fall, September. So what school districts have to do is we have to guesstimate what might happen with that assessed valuation. We work with the town's assessor's office, and the little bit of the challenge in the last couple of years is that COVID kind of throws a little bit of a monkey wrench into looking at trends. So what school districts, especially South Huntington, what we try to do when we have to guesstimate assessed valuation is we try to be extra conservative. This way, come September, when the assessor's office says, okay, here's your actual assessed valuation, it's in favor of the taxpayer. It's in favor, all right? So the assessed valuation, if it goes on a decline, that's one of the things that could impact the actual out-of-dollar expense for the homeowner. So right now, based on a very conservative guesstimate, if you look at the, and again, this will be on the website, if you look at the bottom in the blue, people's homes, they're assessed differently. Average home, you're looking at about a $60 guesstimate for the year, about $5 a month. We're hoping this is a very conservative guesstimate and that the assessor's office will have very good news for us in September. There has been a trend in recent years in terms of South Huntington with assessed valuation. So we just showed you that with that visual. And again, in terms of the total budget, you see that in the right corner, it's a 5.7 budget to budget. But please tell your neighbors that it is a 0% on the tax levy. We are putting together a budget brochure, and we're hoping that that really sends and drives the point home. We're very excited. We're very proud to be able to do that this year for our community. In addition to the proposition for the budget, our community will have an opportunity to vote on 2 additional propositions. These are the sale of properties. That I've been speaking to this during the course of our budget presentations. The proposition that you'll see listed as number 2 is the property at West 23rd Street, Central Field, where our softball team used to play, but we built a nice, beautiful field for them. Over at Memorial, they've already relocated and are playing there. So this property is Proposition 2 for voter consideration. The other property listed as Proposition 3 is 2 Melville Road, also known as the Old Library. That is also up for voter consideration. And obviously, like I've been saying, the voters have to say yes. And what the district intends to do with these funds is in our 4 elementary schools, we have portables that have kind of passed their lifespan despite the outstanding efforts of our custodial and facilities department. We're looking to deconstruct those elementary portables and construct new elementary library media stream centers. We're very excited for those projects. The next 2 slides, they're hard to read from where you're sitting. The reason that I include them is that, again, when people look at the website, I want our community to get used to the verbiage that they're going to see when they come to vote on May 17th and they make their consideration for these property propositions. So here's Proposition 2 for the Central Field property. Again, you could read this probably in more clarity on the website. Again, to get you more familiar with the verbiage. And then here's Proposition 3, the sale of 2 Melville Road. That's why I included those. Our goals, I mean, you've heard it tonight, you've heard it in previous nights from various presenters from our leadership team, you've heard it from student speakers, students who've been honored. We are a district of excellence. We're never satisfied. We continue to raise the bar. And at the same time, we're very reflective. We know that there are areas that we need to address. There are gaps between opportunities and achievement that we need to close. And we realize that there's always a way to enhance outreach and partnerships with our community. And that's what we continue to strive to do, as we do so by bringing safe and secure and clean and beautiful, with our fine dining rooms as a perfect example, spaces for our student, staff, and community. The process continues, and at the next board meeting on the 26th, that's a BOCES budget that doesn't impact the school district. And then what happens on May 10th, whether or not there's a music montage, I'm not sure, but there'll be the public hearing on the budget following by May 17th, where you have the budget vote, the board elections, and the property propositions for our community's consideration.
Thank you, Dr. Seymour. Very good presentation. Covered a lot of this material in the past. It was a good review, as well as the additions and last-minute legwork that had to be done to address the unexpected decrease in the state aid, though as it remains generous, but it was unexpected. Does the board have any questions for Dr. Seymour? Okay. We will return to the budget momentarily when we move into our business agenda with those propositions. I'll take a motion to adopt the agenda. Mr. Bronson, second. Ms. Carey. All in favor of the agenda? Any opposed? All right. Items C through F require one resolution for adoption. We have the minutes, we have the financial items, and that's it. No F. Motion on item C through F. Mr. Bronson, seconded by Mr. Joyner and Ms. LaCara. All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Moving on to communications, we received a couple different communications over the course of the past week. One communication was from Western Suffolk BOCES, providing information on their annual meeting and their administrative and capital budgets. As Dr. Centimore said, the April 26th meeting is a meeting for the Board of Education to vote on the administrative and capital budgets and the Western Suffolk BOCES trustees. We have email communication to the board and the cabinet from a Mr. Adam Ferrara, class of 1984, regarding the Silas Wood Sixth Grade Center librarian status. Is Mr. Ferrara here? Okay. And then lastly, we have an expression of appreciation from the family of Olivia Vulgar to the Board of Education on the passing of Ms. Vulgar, who happened to be the aunt of our Dr. Joseph Centimore. All right, those are our communications. We will now move on to new business. And when we get to new business, a number of these items relate to the 2022-2023 budget. We will take them in turn. We will start right now with a secret determination for capital projects, which were presented in the presentation for 2022-2023. Is there a motion? Mr. Bronson, second. Mr. Joyner. Dr. Centimore?
Thank you. So these projects have been vetted through our facilities committee. Our architects and engineers have determined that there's no environmental impact. These are the projects, including the secret for our transfer to capital in the budget, as well as the intended use of the funds from the 2 property sales.
Okay. All right. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, we're moving on to the adoption of the 2022-2023 budget. Is there a motion? Mr. Joyner and Ms. Carey, seconded by Mr. Bronson. All right. And this, I'll read this resolution as this is an important one. Be it resolved that the budget of $195,504,039 be adopted in the amount thereof, less state aid and other income, be raised by tax upon taxable property of South Huntington Union Free School District, Town of Huntington, County of Suffolk, New York, for the school year 2022-2023. Any questions from the board on the budget? All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Budget is adopted unanimously. We want to take this moment to congratulate our team on a job well done. Dr. D'Elia, your first budget, and you came in looking like a hero with a 0% tax levy increase, so kudos. You can only go down from there, but hopefully, hopefully not.
Words of encouragement.
But on a serious note, this is a really, I think, a phenomenal accomplishment, and one very proud of, to present something like this. A budget has to have a lot of components to it. It has to have sustainability, it has to have affordability, and it also has to be in tune with our commitment to excellence. And I think that budget accomplishes all of that. So to be able to offer some new programs and new personnel while holding the line on taxes, especially in these difficult times, as you know, each day you go to the grocery store, the prices go up, and we got inflation numbers today that were not very good. And I think the board recognized that these were tough times for everybody. It's been a tough couple of years coming off the pandemic, and we crafted a budget together. This is my 18th, and I think that this is the budget I'm most proud of. And I think we spent a lot of time, and we will spend a lot of time selling it, because it's something that the community hopefully will appreciate, and something that we should all be proud of. It was a great team effort. We've made great strides in this district over the coming years, and this budget allows us to continue to do so. And as I mentioned earlier, one thing that we ask Dr. D'Elia is whenever there's new spending proposed, we always want to make sure it's sustainable, because, you know, we've had a cycle in the district, as most districts have had, you know, it's kind of a boom-bust cycle, you know. You cut things, you add them back in during good times, then you cut, and then you add them back in, or you stay stable, and you don't want to get into that. You want to make sure that these things can stay in there, because there's nothing worse than doing all the energy and the effort to get a new program on, only to cut that. And, you know, we're still dealing with cuts that we had from 10 years ago. You know, so it's very hard to add things back in as you go along. And I think this budget is, it accomplishes a lot of different things. That's what a budget has to do. It has to take the consideration in from a lot of different stakeholders, from the community, from the taxpayers, from the parents, from our staff, from our administrators, and it has to be melded into to one pot with limited funds. And, you know, this year was better, and it's a direct, it bears a direct relationship to our state aid that we got. We had talked about that, and my predecessor had talked about that for a lot of years, you know, where, you know, we were beating the drumbeat of we weren't getting our fair share, and Long Island hadn't been getting its fair share. And, you know, I remember going to Albany a couple of years ago with, before the pandemic, with Mr. Joyner and Dr. Bernardo, and we presented to them how South Huntington was being shortchanged vis-a-vis other districts, similarly situated districts. In fact, we have a close district nearby, Bayshore. We were showing them how much more state aid other districts were getting with similar students and similar diverse populations, and they actually listened to us. So we criticize our elected officials in Albany a lot, you know, but this time we have to give them credit, because they did listen, they recognized the problem. Next year, as we said, is the third year of the phase-in of the foundation aid, and so that's kind of where we are, and the state of the district, I would say, is strong. So credit to everybody at this table. It's a team effort, and the people in the audience as well. So that was a lot of words, but I think it's important, because this was an important occasion. You know, we've come a long way. When I was first on the board, you know, tax increases were 6% and 7% a year, and, you know, that was very difficult on the community and not really sustainable. And then that brought in the tax cap, which is a blunt instrument, and, you know, forced taxes down, but also put school districts in a very tight box, because you could only raise a certain amount of money. And so, you know, we've tried to always be respectful that there's a cost to be borne to have great education, and our taxpayers have to be willing to support that, and they have supported our budgets by and large. So, thank you to them. Okay. Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Brunson.
I was just saying, thank you to everybody that was involved, obviously, in the budget process, because, you know, at the meetings, you come forward and you get about a 10-minute presentation, but like Mr. Sikipeda said, there's a lot of work involved to get to the stage. So again, I just wanted to also say just thanks to everybody that was involved in the budgeting process.
Great. All right, new business item number 3, proposition for the sale of land. Motion? Mr. Bronson, second. Second. Mr. Joyner? And this is the second proposition that you're going to see on your ballots when you vote. The first proposition is going to be the budget. The second is for the first of 2 sales of land. And this one is for Central Field. As Dr. Centimore mentioned, land is no longer needed, given to the relocation of the girls' softball team. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? All right. And moving on to proposition number 3. Is there a motion? Mr. Joyner, seconded by Ms. LaCara. This is the third proposition and the second of 2 relating to the sales of properties. This is also regarding some unnecessary property. It's the current South Huntington Library. It's going to be sold to, the former South Huntington Library. It's going to be sold to Rise in Spirit, and for an amount of $1,759,000. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? All right. So those are the 3 budget propositions. Also related to that is resolution number 5, is the district's property tax card for 2022-2023. Is there a motion? Mr. Bronson, seconded by Mr. Joyner. Dr. Centimore, can you tell us what this is?
Yeah, so this is the details of the budget that I just presented. It also details our reserves as well as our intended use of reserves.
Does this, is this part of a mailer, or is this something that's getting mailed out, or no?
Yeah, this goes to the state.
Oh, state, okay. Great. Any questions on the report card? Very detailed information. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, moving on to item number 6 is the approval of the administration of the budget vote and election officials. Is there a motion? Ms. Carey, seconded by Ms. LaCara. This resolution, the budget is as we said, preparing the budget is a lot of work, but the budget itself on May 17th also is a lot of work. Our voting is from 3 to 10 at Walton High School, and there are a lot of people who are very involved in that. We have a budget vote chairperson, Michelle Murphy of the PTA. The clerk of the meeting is Laura McLean, our district clerk. We have two chief election inspectors. We have a number of district inspectors who check people in to make sure people are able to vote or to register new people. We have dinner clerks during dinner time, and then there's also different people from Suffolk County Board of Elections. So there's a lot of hands on deck. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? All right. That takes us through our budget materials. Moving on to another couple of financial items. Number 7 is the approval of a single audit report for the year ending June 2021. Motion? Mr. Bronson, second. Ms. Carey. Dr. Centimore.
Thank you. So this is, this audit was performed by our external auditors, R.S. Abrams. They focused on the federal grants, and it was a very clean review, no findings, and it was vetted through our audit committee.
Any issues, Mr. Bronson?
No, as Dr. Senator said, it was a very positive report, and again, these were the federal funds for the Title I lunches and also for the COVID recovery, so it's always great to get a clean bill of health when you're dealing with the federal funds.
Great, thank you. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, moving on to new business. Item number 8 is the approval of internal report, risk assessment by Naraki Smith. Motion? Mr. Bronson, seconded by Ms. Carey. Dr. Centimore.
Thank you. So this was also vetted through our audit committee. This internal report was done by our internal auditors, Naraki Smith. They focused on insurance. No findings, clean review. One suggestion to add some documents to our manual, which we've already done. So we're very proud of the oversight of the insurance.
Any issues, Mr. Bronson?
No, again, it was a clean report. I was thankful for that, and again, it was a nice, robust discussion. We covered not only the audit, but we also got into some discussions around insurance coverage and use of our insurance brokers, as well as, I believe, we're projecting some savings through a change of the insurance carrier for the 2021-22 years, which will also be helpful, because
Excellent.
the trend was going up, but I think we'll get a little savings now, so.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Excellent. Excellent. That was brought to us by Dr. Delia, that new insurance company, so thank you. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, moving on to new business item number 6 is the contract extension with Educational Bus. Motion. Mr. Bronson, second. Ms. LaCara. Dr. Centimore?
Yes, thank you. And this, too, was, this bus company was brought to the district by Dr. Delia. This is Educational Bus, and this is an extension of their services for our home to school. We've had a great partnership with them, and we're excited to continue it.
Okay, yep, they have been a good partner to us. Any questions on this bid? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, moving on to item number 10, obsolete equipment. Motion. Mr. Bronson, second. Mr. Joyner. And I will turn it over to Dr. Steele.
Yes, we have a listing of 3 computers that have been submitted by St. Anthony's High School. All these computers have been deemed obsolete. We have a Dell laptop, a Microsoft Surface, and a Newline interactive display. All asset numbers are attached. None of these computers can be updated, and they all are beyond repair.
These are computers that we provided to St. Anthony's?
That is correct.
Any questions?
I would like the Coleco electronic quarterback that was found.
All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Moving on to item number 11 is approval of the Smart Schools Investment Plan submission. Motion. Mr. Joyner, seconded by Ms. LaCara. I'll turn it over to Dr. Murphy. This is related, I believe, to the public hearing that we had at the last meeting.
Yes, last meeting we talked about, this was our proposal to update and identified areas with Ms. Fulton with regards to keyless door entry as well as our PA system at Stimson. This is the actual form or application that goes to the state so we can get approval and be able to allocate those funds for those areas that we discussed.
Okay. A lot of material here that needed to be provided, so thank you. Any board have any questions on this? All in favor? Any opposed? Moving on to new business item number 12, request to remain in South Huntington. Is there a motion? Mr. Bronson, seconded by Mr. Joyner and Ms. Carey. This is a request from a parent for 2 children to remain in South Huntington through the end of the school year, a Walton High School student and a Oakwood Primary Center student. The board has the discretion in these circumstances where there's a change in address in the middle of the year to approve a request to remain for the remainder of the year, provided that the parent provides for transportation, which the parent has said they would do here. Any questions? This matter was discussed in executive session. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, the request to remain in South Huntington is approved through the rest of the year. Moving on to item 13 is the recommendations of placements on the students by the Committee on Special Education, dates listed February, March, April, and the Committee on Preschool Special Education's dates listed January, February, and March. Motion. Mr. Bronson, second. It is LaCara. Any questions on the placements? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, moving on to personnel. We have personnel schedules 2, 3, 7, 9, 10, 11, 15, 16, 17, and 22. Do we have a motion to discuss? Ms. LaCara, second. Ms. Carey. Any questions on the personnel schedules? Bless you. All in favor? Any opposed? Oh, sorry. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, resolution is adopted unanimously. Information and reports are listed, including a nice article that appeared in the Long Islander entitled "School Community Takes It Off." Children shaving their heads to raise money for St. Baldrick's Day and St. Baldrick's Foundation. Very nice to see a good cause and good to see our students in the paper. Committee reports. First committee report is Curriculum Council. Minutes from March and April. Ms. Carey, I think we've covered everything.
We have. Dr. Murphy, are we missing anything on that?
No, just we've been furthering our conversations, looking at other curriculum, really vetting some of our technology and what we're using in and out of the classroom. We'll have more reports in our May when we finalize some of our instructional programs and our trainings, and we'll give more insight in May.
We did have the review, they had the instructors there. It was great. It's an amazing program.
Thank you, Ms. Carey, for your work on the committee and your report. Facilities Committee minutes from a meeting dated March 29th. A couple primary areas of discussion. The first was we annually review our community use of facilities fee schedule. We did so again this year. The issue generally relates to the use of outside groups on our facilities, which always raises some concerns in the use of the fields. You know, our fields are largely grass with the exception of the turf field at the high school, and outside community use, while we like to support it, it does come at a cost, and there's a lot of wear and tear on those grass fields. So the committee discussed whether there should be any changes in the amount charged as well as procedures. And we will have a recommendation, I believe, to the Board of Education at a future point, but we do need another meeting to vet some language. Second, we also looked at another area kind of that we think is underutilized and underserved a little bit. Our fitness center at Walworth High School. It's a big space and it has served our students very well. But in comparison to some other districts around, you know, it doesn't necessarily have the same qualities that we're looking for, and we think by making some improvements there, it can benefit not only our athletic teams, which is great, but in the entire student body. And you know, this was something when we presented our 7-year capital plan that we didn't have in it, and then we realized that it should be something that should be in there because that's a space that every Walworth High School student can enter, and it's really not really a weight room. It's a fitness center, and it's a classroom. So we'll be making some recommendations to the board in the future. But first, you know, we are evaluating You know, we did a tour of neighboring districts, Northport, Harbor Fields, and Syosset, to look at how they organized the room, the type of equipment they had. So we're going to look at, can we organize better? Do we need new equipment? And what structural changes need to be made? And see if we can fund it. And that was largely it. We did discuss, the last item is there is a grant for $100,000 that we have been awarded through Senator Gorin, and the Facilities Committee was discussing some potential ideas for the use of that money. We haven't finalized the recommendation yet, so we will do so at our next meeting. Any questions on the report? Yes, Mr. Bronson.
On the fitness room, is that available, even in its current state, but is it available only during school hours? Is it available after hours that students can use it for? Can we change that? If it's shorter, can we make it longer? I don't know if it's...
Mr. Barth, you want to address that?
Currently, the fitness center is used in the morning before school. It's used all throughout the school day for all phys ed classes 9 through 12. It's used after school for intramurals, and then our athletic teams coming after intramurals. So all students have the ability to use it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was interesting, you know, the different facilities were, you know, used their rooms in different ways. Some had more free weights, some had more cable machines, some had machines with no cables because they do tend to break. So we're kind of looking at that proper mixture. There's a lighting and ventilation issue also in the room, and the flooring is, you know, the flooring is really something that needs to be addressed originally. There's a wood floor, but it's pretty much deteriorated. There's nothing left to it. So the space, you know, needs some work to really bring it up to standards. And, you know, there were some common characteristics among the rooms that we saw. Some of it was, you know, each room kind of had, you know, district colors and stuff, and a mixture of equipment. You know, some were really high end. You know, like Syosset was probably at the far end of, you know, they had a $500,000 room plus in a new space, and every single weight in the room had their district logo on it. So, you know, I don't think we're going to make a recommendation to present something like that. I think the primary, you know, would be to some new equipment and to get it a clean space, you know. Okay, that's facilities report. Upcoming meetings, as we mentioned, April 26th is a special board meeting for the BOCES budget and the elections. May 3rd, we have a special Board of Education meeting that has just been added for the sole purpose of going into executive session to discuss matters of personnel. May 10th is a regular Board of Education meeting, which will be the public hearing of the budget. That's statutorily required. It's an opportunity for the community to address the board, really. That's its main purpose. May 17th is the vote from 3 to 10 at the high school. We do have a regular business meeting, and our final meeting of the year is June 15th. Comments by board members? Mr. Joyner, you want to give us a report on the National School Board Conference?
Absolutely. So last week, the National School Boards Association returned to actually in-person conference, and this is the first time in 2 years with regards to what is taking place with COVID. So we originally started with 8 members going, and it resulted in just 1. I, decided to represent for the district and forge ahead to that location that it was held in, which was San Diego, California. So I must say I was very impressed with the return to school boards, return to National School Boards Association's in-person convention. It was heavily attended. Not all the districts, unfortunately, were represented from different states, because one of the lingering problems, I just mentioned this, is that some states have pulled out of being a part of national school boards in their representation, and that is due to some of the controversy on school boards throughout the country. So the representation from certain states like Chicago, Tennessee, Georgia, Texas, and others was not there as heavily as it usually is. And but in that exodus, should I say the absence, there were still districts that decided to come from those areas. They self-funded themselves, and they came to participate and to share their experiences. And it was a really, really wonderful time. A lot of interaction with people who were on the ground doing the work that you're doing and understanding how stellar they were. And also, there were a lot of top-notch sessions there. There were so many. I was only one person. I tried to do as many as I could. I would dip in, dip out. But a lot of sessions that I'm going to share with the district, with the work that I'm sending back, that focused on a holistic approach to education on so many different levels, from the board to actual on-the-ground teaching to special education, to everything that we cover in this district was represented at a high level and with high-level presenters. One of the keynote speakers you may know is Damon John from the Sharks, the Shark Tank show. He was an excellent presenter. He really tied into the success of his career being tied into education. And he really exemplified how that manifested in his life and how the support of his mother made a difference in his life. So there was other presenters, and also just to mention this, our neighboring district, Uniondale, their band, the Rhythm of the Nation, won the competition to actually come there to present. So they presented, and they did actually three performances there to a rousing crowd. I mean, the arena was full of about 2,000 people in these conference rooms. So that was nice to see. And we also, I connected with former candidate for superintendent, Monique Akil. She was there and representing her new school district. She's the new superintendent of Uniondale school district. And so I look forward to getting another chance to go back out there. It's going to be in Orlando. But I would encourage the teachers, if you can make it, it's really something special to be among educators and to really see what's going on across this country and the hardships that they're facing legislatively also, and along with and the local districts. But it was an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Joyner, for attending and for your report. It's always interesting to speak with people from different states.
Absolutely.
You know, their processes they face the same challenges, but their processes are so different. And in some states, the Board of Education actually runs on, identify with a political party, which is interesting, too.
Yes. And there was a lot of case examples that are showcased as well, the actual work that are, that is being done in different school districts. They get a chance to present to the entire group on what their best practices are, which there was a number of those, and it's always something really good to see.
Thank you, Mr. Joyner.
How did it compare? So we were at the one in Philadelphia before COVID, a number
Right.
of years ago, different location. You probably got to California safer than our trip to Philadelphia, if you remember the drive.
Yes, yeah.
But having said that, as far as the conference, similar, different feelings at different coasts and different time period? Or?
Well, the difference is, they have a dedicated conference center there that's right on the water, across from Coronado Island. And,
It's a beautiful.
and the beauty
You
was,
didn't want to leave, right?
Oh, I had one day when I arrived, the sun, 60, 70-degree weather, and then other days it was rainy and overcast, but it was still gorgeous out there, and the place was so expansive. I mean, I probably dropped a couple of pounds trying to walk from different, sessions and walk around there. So it was a great experience. It really was an ideal place for a conference. Just do want to mention that the food and everything was expensive. It was like almost New York prices, I would say, out there.
San Diego's expensive.
Oh, it's expensive. Yeah, I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. But hey, other than that, lots of attractions, lots of beauty, and the convention center was really nice. And people, San Diego itself welcomed the convention. NYSBA signs was everywhere, and everybody was participating, and everybody was welcoming. So
Their downtown is very nice. They've
yeah, that was my first time there. So
Yeah.
had friends who lived there, so it was nice to actually just come up and catch up what they enjoyed as well.
That's nice. Yeah, it's a great place.
Yeah,
Good.
it is.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Glad Jake, we were able to attend, had a good time. Any other comments? Dr. D'Elia?
Yes. This past Saturday was a wonderful day here in South Huntington. It was an action-packed day, touching a lot of different areas. We started off Saturday morning by having Stream Saturday at Maplewood. A lot of coding, designing. It was great. About 120 students attended. So Ms. D'Elia ran it. I have to give her credit for that. But there was a tremendous amount of support there from teachers, the student helpers, tech ambassadors, student tech ambassadors. So it was a wonderful morning. In the afternoon, we shifted over to Legally Blonde, the high school musical, and Ms. Turner and her cast and the students were outstanding. It was an unbelievable play, and coming off the middle school Stimson's play back about a month ago, into the High School Musical. We have some really talented individuals in this school district. It's amazing what they've done. And I also got a glimpse at the inaugural season of the girls' flag football out on the turf field. We had 40 unbelievable female athletes out there. They destroyed. It was a scrimmage, but you know, I do have a little bit of a competitive side, so I was keeping score in my head, and I think it was 36-0 at halftime. And just watching our girls compete was an awesome sight, and it just shows you, you know, where we are right now as far as the district and students actively competing, acting, designing. It's awesome to see, and it was a great Saturday. So, and moving forward, I wish everybody going into the spring break, you know, happy holidays for all that are celebrating, and I know I have a lot to be proud of and to celebrate here as representing this district as superintendent. This is a special place, and I can't say enough and how proud I am of everyone. So, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I got to see the show on Saturday night, and it was really, it was terrific, Legally Blonde. It was really, it was like a perfect High School Musical. It's just, you know, there was a lot of humor and great singing, and it was just fun, and it was a packed crowd, so it was good to see that. And the kids just did, they were amazing. Really got a great reception. Okay, voice of the residents. Yes. And if you can just address the board and please state your name for the record.
Good evening, Dr. D'Elia, South Huntington District Administration, and members of the school board. I'm Christina Holzweiss, wife, parent, resident, taxpayer, 2015 National School Librarian of the Year, Long Island Director for the New York State Association for Computers and Technology in Education. Last May, I reached out to Dr. D'Elia about my concerns regarding the vacant position of a full-time certified school librarian at the Silas Wood 6th Grade Center. At that time, Dr. D'Elia served as the Assistant Superintendent of Business, and it was too late in the process to add another position to the budget. Even though there was no possibility last year, Dr. D'Elia took the time to engage in conversations with me anyway and thanked me for reaching out to him. In his email, Dr. D'Elia expressed that he was, quote, absolutely looking to revive the Silas Wood Library and wanted to discuss this further with me. Dr. D'Elia said that it was a pleasure speaking with me and thanked me for sharing with him a copy of my book, Hacking School Libraries, 10 Ways to Incorporate Library and Media Centers into Your Learning Community. Realizing the need for a certified school librarian, the South Huntington Administration and School Board agreed to a .6 position at the March 23rd meeting. While this was a step in the right direction, it has brought up issues of inequity among the students, not only in South Huntington, but also in Silas Wood, as a part-time educator cannot possibly meet the needs of a full student body. Even though Silas Wood houses only one grade level in our district, the district has realized the need for a full-time principal, full-time assistant principal, full-time nurse, full-time art teacher, full-time world language teacher, full-time coding teacher, and full-time makerspace teacher. Now it is the time for a full-time certified school librarian to join the faculty. Since South Huntington is the only district in the Western Suffolk BOCES school library system whose sixth graders do not have access to a full-time certified school librarian, surely there must be some reason for this oversight, since this has not always been the case. Walt Whitman class of 1984 graduate comedian and actor Adam Ferrara fondly remembers his Silas Wood school librarian by name. Quote, the library and Mrs. Thrasher, our librarian, was very important to me. She took the time to show me how our library worked and opened a door in my mind as to what was possible. This is a resource I believe all children must and should have available to them. I can attest to the fact that over the course of my career as an actor and comedian, I've spent countless hours researching in preparation for a performance. If it were not for Mrs. Thrasher, I am not sure I would have been able to do this type of work. When the full-time certified school librarian position was eliminated nearly a decade ago, I appreciate the district's tough decision-making during that difficult time. We had to make do with what we had. But thankfully, we won't have to make those difficult decisions again this school year. With the April 10th announcement of $457 million extra in state aid funding coming to Long Island School, this is the perfect time to repair what has been broken. Tied with Lynbrook in 9th place of the 126 school districts in Nassau and Suffolk counties, South Huntington will receive an additional 26%, or $12,048,225 in state financial aid. The additional $26,000 needed to bring the part-time certified school librarian position to full-time can now be recovered without any burden to our taxpaying community. This is truly an exciting time for South Huntington, as we can now join the other districts around us who have full-time certified school librarians for their sixth graders. To further support our school learning community, I would like to accept Dr. Murphy's invitation to provide my opinions on additional resources and library media that would benefit our students at this level. I'm happy to provide my assistance to your certified school librarians so that the South Huntington Research and Literacy Program can be the envy not only of other schools on Long Island, but in New York and ultimately the nation.
Thank you. Dr. D'Elia, do you want to address any point?
Sure. One of the things we looked into as far as seeing what sixth graders receive from library services, Dr. Murphy did some extensive research with neighboring school districts as far as the tasks of a librarian, and it varies from district to district. And in some districts, a librarian in sixth grade can do some coding, do some technology, makerspace. Fortunately for us at Silas Wood, we have a full-time coding teacher, we have a full-time makerspace teacher, and we have a .4 technology integration coach that support our students. And our .6 librarian is going to focus on library skills and research. We're not looking to take the .6 librarian to have that individual code, do makerspace, to be a technology integration coach. So this is something that we're extremely proud of. And I know Ms. Holsworth, as you mentioned, and this is definitely a step in the right direction. And this is something we're also going to evaluate after a year and to see where we are. And we appreciate your willingness to speak with Dr. Murphy and his team to put our heads together. And then after this year, the 2022-23 school year, we could sit down and evaluate to see where we are. But we definitely, I'm super excited that the board supports having a librarian at Silas Wood, and we're proud of everything we have to offer our Silas Wood students. Because in researching the research that Dr. Murphy did, I can tell you that the students there are definitely getting a boatload of resources, and we're excited about having a .6 librarian back at Silas Wood.
Thank you, Dr. D'Elia, and thank you, Ms. Holsweiss, for your thoughtful comments and your advocacy on this issue. Also want to congratulate you. I was at the PTA reflection ceremony. I noticed a couple of your kids got some awards, so congratulations on that. As Dr. D'Elia said, you know, nothing is forever. You know, we evaluate everything every year to see how everything works on these issues. You know, we make changes from year to year. Sometimes things don't work, you know, and we need to fix it, and other times they do work, and we continue doing what we're doing. We never do the same thing in South Huntington because that's the way it's always been done. That's kind of a banned phrase here. We don't use that. Everything should be evaluated constantly, and you know, I think as you mentioned, the .6 is a step in the right direction, and you know, maybe it doesn't, maybe it addresses our needs, and maybe it doesn't, and you know, and we'll take this year to evaluate that and see if it needs to be adjusted for the following budget cycle. There, you know, unfortunately, as I mentioned, we can't meet every need at every time in the budget process. We were fortunate to get a lot of state aid this year, but we had to spend a lot of that money to just address the going forward costs. There were $8 to $9 million before we even sat down that we had to put on a piece of paper that were expenses, carryover expenses from last year, whether there were salaries, increases in medical costs, or increases in pensions. So that's kind of where you start right there. And then we've also had to address learning loss in a very substantial way over the last couple of years. So, that took up a big chunk of the $12 million. And so after that, we were able to make some other fine tunes and to meet some requests, and one of those is the librarian, and as, we'll see how it goes, and, hopefully it works out and meets the needs of our students, and if it doesn't, we have an opportunity next year to address that as well. And thank you also for your email. I received it to take up Dr. Murphy on his request to provide assistance, and we look forward to you doing so. Thank you. Anyone else like to address the board? All right. With that, we take a motion. We need to go into exec to address a matter of personnel. Motion by Ms. Carey, seconded by Ms. LaCara. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. We'll see you at April 26th.